Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today, and this kind of sets up a future video called Sons of the Templars and the Lost Crusade, the story of the attempt to claim America about 700 years ago. But I don't want to spend a lot of time in that video on the Newport Tower, and I believe I pretty much have got a handle on who built this, and the archaeoastronomy of this building is its greatest clue. And I believe it was built by the Cistercians. We're going to go down and take a look here. But who are the Cistercians? Well, they are really descendants of the Templars, sons of the Templars. By 1350 or so, you could not call yourself Templars. Obviously, in 1307, they were rounded up and pretty much executed. They had the big whopper, the big secret against the church, which I have mentioned in previous videos. They were extremely wealthy. They were ambitious. They had a desire really for a place for themselves. They had maps, they had ancient maps, they had everything that the Templars, really the information that the Templars had to them. But they came to America, and they pretty much did it by the book, by the Templar book, along the way of great journeys and great crusades. They hid wealth for future journeys in a secretive way, in a mystery that has never been told in the proper way, and I'll be getting to that in the future. But the Knights Templar, the Cistercians, the Welsh Cistercians, they built the Newport Tower, and the evidence of what was put into this building is the greatest clue. And I'm going to be showing a couple clips, one from the Newport Tower, just explained a little bit, and then a lecture from Recording Archaeology that really ties the two together. These people, about 700 years ago, made a great, ambitious journey. They left clues in America. They left the greatest artifact, the greatest inscription of ancient America, which really has only come to light maybe in the last 20 years of the importance of it. And I'm going to be going over everything in my video, Sons of the Templars and the Lost Crusade. Now, this is the greatest evidence of who built the Newport Tower. It is a central story component of the Lost Crusade, of the Cistercians. They were sons of the Templars. They were very ambitious, and this story needs to be told in the proper way. There is a mystery on an island before you get to Newport that has never been told in the proper way. Hope you thought this was interesting. Here are those video clips, and you all have a very nice day.
So let's take a look at the tower. You know, one of the main features of the tower that's very unusual is that egg-shaped rock right there. In the early 1990s, Professor William Penhallow from the University of Rhode Island found several astronomical alignments in the windows of the tower. He says if you come here on December 21st, which is the winter solstice, the sun comes up behind that flagpole over there, and it shines through the south window, which is just around the corner here, and then it makes a small patch of light just to the left of the west window up there. That's the west window. And this patch of light starts just to the left of it, and then as the sun rises, it will move through that west window to a point on the northwest corner of the park, which I'll show you in a second. And then about an hour and a half later, this patch of light works its way down from that west window, and it illuminates that egg-shaped rock that's in the middle of that arch right there. It's like a spotlight on it. It's like so dramatic that you can see that it was done intentionally. And right behind that rock, egg-shaped rock, is another rock which is shaped like a circle. We call it the sunstone on the exterior. But look, a lot of people suggest, well, that's a keystone, Jim. That's part of the construction. Well, keystones are always in the center of the arch, and you can see that's definitely not in the center of the arch. So somebody's trying to tell us something. They embedded a clue that talks about light and talks about time, and they embedded it right into the tower. And the Danish people came over here and did some mortar testing on the tower. And as part of their project, they did a photogrammetric survey, which means they took pictures of all the different sides of the outside of the tower, and then put them all together in one giant panorama, unwrapping this circular tower to one flat thing. And based on these very accurate measurements, Professor Penhallow was able to determine the heights of the windows and the declination and azimuth that they would see when you're looking through them. So if we stand in this position right here, we can look through the west window, which is right there, and we can see through the tower, and you see a small patch of sky out the south window. It's just a very small window onto the sky. But on the winter solstice, December 21st, the sun comes up above the horizon, and about half an hour after sunrise, boom, it shines right through those two windows from standing right here or anywhere in a line along here. Then that sun, on that day, makes a low arc across the sky, and it goes behind that steeple. It's very low in the sky. In the fall and spring, the sun does not go through those two windows. It's much higher in the sky, and it sets about here. And in the summertime, the sun comes up way at the end of Mill Street over here. It's really high in the sky, and it sets way down over here. So this alignment marks the southernmost arising of the sun every year. We call this the sun alignment. And there's something very special about these two windows, the west window and the south window. They're both tapered. In other words, on the edges of the windows, instead of being flat, they're tapered. They go in like this, and they go in like this on both sides. And they're both tapered so that this alignment, you'll be able to see through all of these windows. Some people suggest that they're tapered so that you can shoot bow and arrows through them. But a gentleman came here the other day from England, and he told me, those aren't bow and arrow windows. And I said, why? Some people suggest they are. He said, I just came back from England and Ireland, and bow and arrow windows are these tall slits that are about this tall and about this wide, and so that they're big enough that you can get the bow to fit all the way through the slit, and you'll be able to reach out and aim where you want, and then once you've fired, you're able to get out of the way so they're not going to shoot you. He said, you would never have a window that wide. You stand in the middle of that, you're dead meat. They can see you. It's like watching a picture of some guy to shoot at. So anyways, these alignments, the splaying of the window, that architectural has to do with this lighting feature as opposed to anything.
Very different sorts of landscapes, like, hey, this is Wales we're talking about. So it's not the Netherlands. There is a real question here about the landscape's influence on these orientations, and indeed that's one of the reasons we've asked this question of these abbeys. However, what was interesting, just jumping really to the end, is that when we took the landscape into account, the orientations, although quite diverse, fell into a sense of order or patterns. So, just a point to clarify here, that if we had just taken the azimuths, then we'd be looking for what would be known as symbolic or even theological sunrise or sunset. This is Valcruces looking towards the western door, and you can see the mountains behind it. And if we just took the azimuth of the abbey, we would be working out the dates of the western sunset, like there. Indeed, that's Pan right there. And obviously that is never going to happen at this site. So what we were calculating is when would the actual sun, this is sunset, obviously it's the west, would actually occur, the sunlight shining down through the abbey, which would be, in this case, the top of those hills. Is this a pointer? Do we have a... Yeah, top of those hills, they've got very different landscapes. Now, once we take the azimuth and the altitude measurements, of course, we can actually translate that into declinations. And this is Valcruces again. This is Stellarium, so it pops up all the time now, and it's wonderful. I've just put the declination grid on here. This is 10, this is 20, and this is just showing the sun setting through the western doors here at 13.8 declination. One thing I would love to have in Stellarium is being able to use a defined declination line.
Okay.
Can I? Yep. Oh, right, okay. More conversation with. Oh, good. I'm going home now to play some more. Right, thank you. Okay. And just as an aside, we have been finding that when we've been doing virtual work in English Cistercian abbeys, and we've done real work, field work in Irish Cistercian abbeys, and we're finding this Michaelmas ticking up along the way. Now, the dilemma of East, if people say, right, churches faced East, etc., just looking at it, Isidora of Seville spoke that a church should face East so that the congregation, when they look towards the altar, they're looking to the East, but they're looking towards the part of the sky which split the sky in two in equal proportions. Duridanus spoke, he commented on it 600 years later, actually 700 years later, he sort of wrote, the foundation must be so contrived as that the head of the church may point due east. That is, to the point of the heavens where the sun arises at the equinox, to signify that the church militant must behave herself with moderation, both in prosperity and in adversity, and not towards that point where the sun arises at the solstice, which is the practice of some. There's much to be made from that quote. Now, as many of you will be aware, the equinox occurs when the sun is on the equator in both March and September, the equinoxes. On these days, there is a balance of day and night. There's little wobbles on that, but we can say that generally. And also, on a totally flat horizon, of course, the sun will rise and set due east and due west. It's all very nice, but in Wales we don't have the flat horizon. So, but what we're actually finding, an additional point that should be made is that on those days, the sun actually, on any local horizon, is at the midpoint of its span. If you take winter solstice, summer solstice, mark that on the horizon, the midpoint will be the equinox, no matter what that horizon basically is. So it's that balance, it's balance of the hours of the day and balance of the halves of the sky and the halves of the skyscape, in a sense, that Isadora is talking about when he says the right and left parts of the sky are equal. And indeed, we have found that this is what is really going on with many of the Cistercian abbeys in Wales.